Welcome everyone to our yoga practice under the new moon in Cancer. Cancer, a water sign represented by the crab and ruled by the moon, is known for its nurturing energy, deep emotions and strong intuition. Like the crab, we may present a strong exterior, but beneath the surface our emotional waters run deep. This new moon can be a wonderful time to connect deeply and compassionately with others and ourselves. Be mindful though, as you may be prone to mood swings and attachment. Today's practice will be a safe and cozy space to explore these cancerian qualities. We'll follow on gentle movements and longer holds that allow us to reflect on our emotional needs and create space for self-care. As we move, feel free to connect with your intuition. Cancer is a powerful sign for tapping into your inner wisdom. To enhance the Cancerian energy, consider incorporating some Moonstone or even wearing some silver jewellery. Feel free to use some calming essential oils like geranium or lavender. You may want to bring along a couple of blocks and a bolster or some additional pillows for this practice. And when you're ready, let's begin our journey together.
Welcome everybody to the new moon in Cancer yoga practice. So we're going to start today in reclined bound angle pose. You can do this with or without props. If you're doing it with props, you can have a bolster along the length of the spine with a pillow supporting your head. You can also place blocks underneath the backs of your knees. You have the option here to rest one hand on your heart and one hand on your belly. And just take a few moments to really acknowledge the stillness. The stillness of the physical body as it becomes heavy, sinking into your yoga mat. The internal stilling of your energy body as you take the time for rest. And ultimately the stilling of the emotional body, the cessation of the thoughts. The sign of Cancer is deeply associated with strong emotions, intuition. And so it's perfectly natural at this time to experience heavy fluctuations in mood and emotional balance. And instead of denying yourself these very human, beautiful array, mosaic of emotions, we allow ourselves to feel them fully and to notice the space in between. And so the mantra, the connection, the seed for today's practice is I feel. Any opportunity you have today during your practice where you notice the stillness of the mind, or you notice the mind is beginning to drift away, just gently bring it back to this phrase, I feel. And fully reflect on what that means to you in the moment. With your right hand on your belly, you may feel your breath slowing. And with your left hand at your heart, you may even feel the pulse beginning to slow. repeating to yourself the affirmation, I feel. Take one final breath in. Exhale fully. And then just gently guide your knees through center. And hug your knees in into wind relieving pose, Apanasana. Gently roll to the right hand side and press up to a seated position. Or roll along the length of the spine, maybe once or twice, up to a seat, meeting with your legs crossed. And whichever leg is in front, bring that shin as close to parallel with the short edge of your mat as you can. Tent your fingers behind your hips as you inhale. Stay as you are, or as you exhale, folding forwards. Eventually maybe releasing your forearms to the floor, or your forehead can rest down to a block or a bolster. If your knees are pretty far away from the floor, you can place one bolster under one knee or both knees to find support as you relax down. If you want slight more intensity here for our last few breaths in this pose, you can walk your hands to the opposite side of your front leg. So if your left leg is in front, you can walk your hands over to the right, or vice versa. Gently walk your hands back through center and all the way up. Just mindfully switch to the non-intuitive leg. This side might feel a bit more resistant, so bear that in mind. Find a variation that works for your body, either elongating the spine and staying there, or as you exhale you can fold forwards, maybe using the blocks, or eventually perhaps releasing the forearms or the forehead down to a bolster. That feels good to you. Stay as you are, or for your last few breaths, maybe walk over to the opposite side. Walk yourself back through center and all the way up. Just take a breath in stillness. I feel. And we're going to make our way into Paschimottanasana, seated forward fold. I'm going to take a modified version, a passive version. So the first option is to place a bolster or a couple of blocks underneath the backs of the knees for a little bit of softening there. And then you can just relax your upper body over your legs, releasing your head down. Alternatively, sometimes a bit of weight can feel good here to bring the bolster lengthways along the thighs. And then you can just release one ear down to the bolster. If you don't have a bolster, you can use pillows or you can do it without, just focusing on elongating along the spine, keeping your heart as open as possible as your shoulders relax. And as we're about halfway through, if you had one ear to the bolster, you might want to take the opportunity to switch, just to make sure your neck feels nice and balanced. And then just gently bring your head back through center and just roll up the spine. Take this movement gently. Just release your bolster off to one side, and it might feel nice to just bring your hands behind you and lift your chest, lift your chin, maybe even lift your gaze up. Taking the opportunity to open your heart and a deep breath in. I feel. And then bring yourself back through center, make your way into a tabletop position. And we're going to come into a heart melting pose. Now you might want to take a more supportive version by using the bolster for this one. Otherwise you're welcome to add a little bit more intensity by doing this without props. So keep your hips stacked over your knees, tops of the feet flat or toes can be tucked under as you inhale. And then as you exhale, walk your hands forward. Now your palms can be mat width, shoulder width, or you can actually reach for the outside edge of your mat as you release your forehead down to either the floor or bolster, maybe even eventually your chin or your chest. And just really feeling all of those tissues that surround your heart, your lungs, expanding as we open ourselves fully to the emotional potency of the Cancer new moon.
Just take one last breath, fully surrendering to the intensity of this pose. And then mindfully walk your hands back up. Take a little bit of time to adjust, maybe even a little bit of movement, feeling intuitively to the cravings of your body. And then we're going to come into a lizard pose. So we're going to start with the right leg. I'll just switch so you can see me a little better. You're going to bring your right foot to the outside of your right hand, right toes just off the mat, right heel is just on the mat. And you can keep yourself as you are with both hands to the floor. You can even bring your right knee in towards your right shoulder. And then for this one, you might want a couple of blocks or a bolster depending on the mobility. You can release your forearms down. And keep letting that left hip sink towards the floor. You're always invited to keep your hands to the earth or even to blocks, ensuring that we're not pushing into any pain during today's practice. And instead you open yourself to the receptivity of your emotional body, noticing the inner balance there and how these postures, how the influence of the physical body can create an impact on how you feel energetically and emotionally. Now, any sensitivity to your knee or your right ankle, maybe you just stay where you are today. Otherwise, you're invited to come back up onto your hands. Keep your left palm under your left shoulder, and then use your right hand to just gently press your right thigh open, looking out over your right shoulder. Come back through center as you inhale, and then work your right heel over towards your left wrist, your right knee down towards your right wrist as you release your left leg back, with the option for a block or a pillow underneath your right hip. And you're welcome here to maintain an upright position through the spine, or as you exhale you can fold. For a bit more support here, you can actually place your bolster lengthways just to release your forehead. And imagine that there's a heaviness on that left hip bone, drawing it down towards the floor and in line with your right. And your right shin doesn't have to be parallel to the short edge of your mat. Your right heel can be closer to underneath your left hip bone. Take just a couple more breaths here. And then just gently walk your hands back up. And we're going to release the block from under the right sit bone if you had it. And then just mindfully draw your right foot back to center, and you can find a little bit of movement through that hip if it feels nice. Sometimes these little kicks can help to work the circulation back into the lower leg, or just find some nice stretches or a little cat-cow movement if that feels good. It's really an intuitive practice, so listen to that guidance. We all have it. And then we're going to switch sides. So once again, I'll turn.
And we're going to step the left foot to the outside of the left wrist, left toes just off the mat, left heel just on the mat. And hug your left knee in towards your left shoulder as your right hip, well, your whole pelvis sinks towards the earth. And again, you can stay here on your hands or even use blocks if your hands don't quite reach the floor. Or as you exhale, you can make a little stack of your props to relax your forearms down to the earth. You can find a position through the neck that feels natural to you. And you're invited to stay exactly as you are, especially if you have injuries to your knee or your ankle. Otherwise, option to bring your right wrist under your right shoulder, roll onto the knife edge of the left foot, and you can just use your left hand to press that thigh open, moving into a slightly deeper stretch through the inner thigh, but also again opening through the tissues of your heart. Feel your lungs, feel your chest expand. Bring your left wrist to the floor, heel toe your left foot over towards your right wrist, left knee towards your left wrist. And again, you can use a block under your sit bone if it doesn't quite touch the floor, or your hip, your heel might rest underneath your hip bone. And you can start here with a nice tall spine, lengthening, staying here as you are, or eventually maybe releasing down to either the floor, or you can have a nice prop to support your neck. Try to imagine the right side of the pelvis has a heavy weight, drawing it down and in line with the left. Taking just a couple more breaths. And then as you inhale, just gently walking your hands back up, release your props off to the side as you heel toe your left knee back towards the midline. And then just make your way into either that little stretch, a little bit of movement through the left hip, the ankle, or if you'd like, just taking some movements through tabletop. Really take some time to feel the earth beneath you. Feel into that breath, into the spine. And affirming to yourself, I feel. The physical, the energetic, and the emotional, creating this beautiful tapestry, this beautiful weaving to create up our sense of self. And feel into that, knowing that any emotions that rise to the surface are perfectly valid. But by feeling them, by acknowledging them, we release the grip that these emotions have on us, and we make the conscious choice to choose whether they serve us and we want to take them with us through our day, or whether we'd like to take them and release them back out into the world. We're going to make our way onto our backs into a fish pose. Now, if for whatever reason a fish pose causes strain, maybe through the neck, through the shoulders, you can just come into a reclined bound angle pose as we did at the beginning of our practice. For fish pose, you can either do this with the bolster along the length of the spine, or you can do this with a couple of blocks, either on a neutral setting, cervical spine flexion, extension setting, sorry, or for a flexion setting, bring it onto a higher position. So find one that works for you. And then we're going to come down. So the first block is just between the shoulder blades, and then you're going to reach your arms up overhead and find a position for the second block where it supports your head in a way that feels good to you. And once you feel good here, you can release your arms, legs can be long, or you can come into reclined bound angle legs with the soles of the feet together. And as the shoulder blades melt down and away from the ears, once again we feel the spaciousness around the heart. We feel the softening of all the muscles that surround the face, the jaw, the temples, the eyes. And we let go of any control or regulation of our breath. Our lives are full of so much control, so much structure, so much routine, that sometimes just allowing ourselves to feel into what's natural can be somewhat the most uncomfortable feeling. Now, if you're comfortable here, you're welcome to stay here for rest. If you prefer, you can just gently use your forearms to support you as you lift your head, your shoulders up, and then release your blocks. And then come to lay back down into Shavasana. Or again, if you'd prefer reclined bound angle, you can rest one hand on your heart, one hand on your belly. But finding a position that works and resonates with you. The new moon is a brilliant opportunity for reflection and connecting to that intuitive energy that we all hold. Cancer new moon is especially deep within that internal landscape. We get a greater picture of how it feels, what's in alignment, what's not in alignment. And sometimes this can manifest as a moodiness, if you'd like, a kind of crabbiness, as we take on the role of the Cancer crab. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. These emotions, if utilized, can be the catalyst to create powerful change. These emotions can rise up when our intuition finds a connection to something that's out of balance. And so we allow the fluidity of the water element to serve us in a way that can create beautiful change. Just as the river weaves through a new path, so too can we weave ourselves a new path along our journey. And sometimes these twists and turns take course in a way that didn't seem to align with us. But we go with it, we go with the flow. We trust the intuition, we trust the guidance of the universe along the journey. And along the way we feel. So reaffirming to yourself in this stillness, I feel. And continue to feel as this month transitions by. Take time each and every day to feel, not just the physical body, but the energy body and the emotional body. Listen to the inner guidance system, for it's guiding us in the way of change, transition. Please stay resting in your Shavasana for as long as you have. If you have the time, please follow up with a full meditation. perhaps even some journaling to reflect upon the new moon guidance. I really hope that this month brings you a chance to connect deeper with yourselves and with others, and to really embrace that nurturing, loving, emotional energy that Cancer brings. Thank you all so much for joining me today as you go forward, wishing you peace in your thoughts, peace in your words, peace in your heart. Namaste.